Hello, YouTube.
All right, yes, hello YouTube. We're back again. All right, so here we go. We are going to talk about angles today. Angles.
Yes.
And angles have a lot to do with stuff that we've already talked about previously. Tell me if you remember what this thing is. Not yet. What's that right there?
It's a line with an
A
arrow.
line ray.
It's a line ray.
It's a line with an arrow.
A line ray?
A line ray.
Just a ray.
Just a ray. It's just a ray. How do you know it's a ray? Because it has, what's this thing right here?
Point. Dot.
Yeah, it's a point, but say it. Yeah.
Duh.
You're about to say it. I thought you said endpoint. Yeah. This is an endpoint. This is the endpoint to the ray, and this arrow, what does that arrow indicate that it's doing? Just keeps on going forever. So if it has an endpoint and it keeps on going forever in one direction, that would be a ray, correct?
Yes.
So let's do this. And there,
Triangle.
is that a triangle? No. Okay, but that's another. What's the second thing I just drew?
I'd say cute angle.
That's a ray. Just what the second part of what I just drew. What is that thing?
Another ray.
It's another ray, isn't it? Okay. Now look. What do both of those rays have in common?
They met.
They have the same endpoint. That's right. They share the same endpoint. Or the book would say, well, you already make the assumption that rays are straight. Okay, so you don't even have to say it's straight because if it's not straight, it's not a ray anyway. All right. So, but they share a common endpoint, and that's what the book usually uses as a definition. There are two rays that share a common endpoint. You follow me on that?
Yes, sir.
So, for instance, if I let me go to this tool. What if I did that right there? Now, they're two rays. Pretend that arrow's still with it, okay? They're two rays, but they don't share what? They both have endpoints, but they don't share the same or a common endpoint. Now they do. You with me? So now that is an angle. That's what we call an angle. And let's do this. Let's label the angle. We've labeled a lot of stuff from day one. First thing we labeled was a point. Then we labeled a line. Then we labeled a plane. Then another day we labeled a line segment. Then we labeled a ray. On and on, right? And it'll keep on going on and on. This time we're going to label an angle. So let's put some points in here. Let's call that A. Let's call this B. Because it is a ray, isn't it?
Yes.
So this ray right here, what would I call that ray? Just this ray. Ray, which one? Or does it matter?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter?
AB.
I don't think it matters.
Maybe.
Say it. BA, right? Ray BA. It has to start at the end point. We talked about this. It has to start at the end point, and it keeps going through that point right there, through point A. So the end point, even though we think end is like at the end of the road, all right, it's just basically, on this ray it would be the beginning, wouldn't it? We just don't call it the beginning point. We call it the end point. All right, but it starts here, and it keeps on going forever in this direction. So when you call this ray, this has to be the first letter, and that has to be the second letter. Okay?
So when you're like calling something like it Ray BA, would you put a line on top of the BA?
Yes. If I was going to call it ray BA, I would put the BA, and if it was a ray, oops, I'm not very good at, there we go. That's a little bit better. You would make it look like that. Put an arrow just in one direction. That would be ray BA. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And let's keep going. Right there. So I've got ray BA. What would this bottom one right here be? What would I call that? Ray BC. Call it ray BC. All right? Now, if I combine them together that have a common endpoint, I've got one big old thing. I have two separate things, but I have one big old angle. And what would I call that angle? Well, I'm glad you asked. So look at this. Look at this point right here, that common endpoint. That has a special name as well. We call that the vertex. All right. So the common endpoint that these two rays have to form that angle, that point is called the vertex. And we're going to see that quite a bit all throughout the year, really. All right. Now, let's name this angle right here. We would name this angle, and there's the symbol, by the way. Remember we had all these different symbols? That's a symbol for ray. We have a symbol for line, a symbol for line segment, and on and on and on. This is the symbol for an angle. This should be a little bit more straight. I'm making it worse, aren't I? But anyway, it's kind of like an L, with a little bit slanted, right? So that thing's a little bit slanted. That's an angle.
Like a Pac-Man now?
Well, it's straighter. Kind of looks like that. Okay, it should be straight, not curved. I can't make it not curved on this thing.
On that thing, can you type stuff in a shell on there?
Yeah, I can type stuff. An angle I can't. Yeah, so I typed that stuff in before you got here. So, all right. So anyway, watch this. This is an angle, and we'll call it. You could just call it by the vertex, the point where the vertex is. So if I wanted to call it that, I could just call it angle B. All right, that's one possibility. But here's probably a better way to do that. Use 3 letters. Now, the vertex is an important point to this angle, and so it always has to be in the middle. If I'm going to use 3 letters, the vertex always has to be in the middle. Everybody hear that? You might want to jot that down if you can't remember. So I could, what's another way I could call this? I could just call it angle B, or I could call it angle what? ABC. Good. All right, because B is in the middle. Or, what's another possibility? I could call it... Could I call it CAB? Because A is not the vertex. The B has to be in the middle. So I could call it CBA. You see that? So the vertex always has to be in the middle. I could call it that by itself, or I could call it ABC or CBA. There's really no other options on this. I can't call it BCA because C is not the vertex. I can't call it CAB because A is not the vertex. I have to call it ABC or CBA. You with me? The first thing we talked about right here, we could just call it angle B, but what if I had another situation? What if I had another ray coming through here like this? Now, if I can't just say angle B, because how many angles are coming out of this vertex right here, angle B? How many angles? There's actually 3, aren't there? Do you see 3? Let's name them, and let's call this something. What do you want to call that? How about D? Well, we'll call it a point. We name points with capital letters. All right, here we go. Let's keep going. All right, guys. Let's not be silly. Let's pay attention. You with me? Let's name these angles. Let's name this one right here. What would I call this one? We've already called it already. Let's do it again. Call it what? No, the angle. Angle ABC. Okay, what about this angle right here? CBD, right? Or you could go DBC. Doesn't matter. I'm going to go CBD. Where's the third one? ABD, the whole entire thing. Here's another way you can name angles. You can name angles all kinds of different ways. You could put a little 1 right here. If there's a 1 in between these 2 rays, it's talking about angle what? ABC, right? So that would be angle 1. If I put a 2 right there, what's another name for angle 2? CBD, good. And I'm going to put a little arc here to show the whole thing. From here all the way to here, let's put a 3 next to it. So what's another way I could call angle 3? What's another angle I could call angle 3? ABD. Follow me on that? All right, all kinds of different ways. Now, do you understand why I can't just say this is angle B? Some people say, yeah, but I'm talking about the whole thing. But if I have more than one angle coming out of that vertex, I can't just use the 1 letter. All right, because I don't know if I'm talking about angle 1, angle 2, or the whole thing, angle 3. Right? So you got to be more specific if there's more than one angle coming out of that vertex. If there's only one angle coming out of that vertex right there, then you can just call it that letter, and that's fine. All right? But if there's not, if there's more than one angle, you got to use the 3 letters or use the numbers themselves.
So you could just make that like angle sign with the number?
Yeah. Let's write that down. You put angle 1, or you could say angle 2, or you could say angle 3. There you go. All right, so you put the little angle symbol and then whatever it is. It's kind of nice when they number them like this. It's a little easier, don't you think, than putting all those letters in there. Sometimes it's like alphabet soup all over the place, you know. And but it's nice when they put the numbers. Now look, sometimes they're going to give you problems where that's all they give you are the numbers of the angles. Sometimes they'll only give you letters of the angles. Sometimes they'll give you a combination of letters and numbers. Just depends on the problem, depends on how the author wanted to do it, write that problem. Does that make sense? Okay, we good with that? All right, let's pause this and go to something a little different. All right, that was fake out. Let's do something else before I go to the next slide. Let's talk about this. Do you see this? Do you see the rays themselves? You know how I call that common endpoint the vertex? The rays themselves actually have names as well to an angle. We call those the sides of the angle. All right. Just in case. This is all vocab. This is just making sure that we are on the same page. When I say, okay, the side of this angle, then you know what I'm talking about. You know I'm talking about one of the rays. Does it make sense? Could also, let's go a different color here. I could also put a point No, I can go to 15. They changed it this summer. So watch. I could put a point. Let's talk about this angle ABC. Forget this point down here. Let's just talk about angle ABC. I would say this point right here, see how it's between the two rays? I say that this is an interior point, or it's inside the angle, or it's in the angle, or it's the interior of the angle. So any point, look, I could draw a million of them, couldn't I? All these points are what to that angle? They're interior points, aren't they? Well, guess what? It's not much of a stretch to figure out the next part. Yeah, if you have points outside the angle, then we would call those good exterior points. All right, so they would be exterior points. Every once in a while, we'll talk about those. Not too much, but every once in a while. Let's see if there's anything else. Oh, let's do this. If I wanted to measure the angles, we have a certain way, and you probably know this already without me even teaching this to you. Oh, I kept it red. That's okay. All right. What if I wanted to measure this angle right here? Do we measure it in inches? Do we measure it in almost gave it away. I was going to say in feet, in meters. No, but we measure it in degrees. Now, these degrees, is it the same as, hey, it's 90 degrees outside, it's real hot? No, of course not. It's a completely different degree. All right? But we measure an angle in degrees. D-E-G-R-E. All right? So, for instance, this could be, I don't know, I'm just guessing. Let's say 30, and you put a little 0 at the top. You all seen that before, haven't you? That's 30 degrees. So that's how you measure angles. Now, that leads us up to something. Now we're going to actually pause it and write something else in here. All right, I've drawn three styles of angles right here. And you all said this was a what?
Right.
Anybody want to disagree with that?
No.
Who agrees with it? Say it, Allie. Yeah, it doesn't have a little square yet. I can't say that that's 90 degrees. You're making a big assumption, aren't you? You're looking at it and you're like, hey, it sure looks like 90 degrees. But you're making a big assumption about it. You cannot just assume, just because it looks like it's a right angle, that it's a right angle. You got to put the little square. All right? So you put the little square right there. It's supposed to be straight. Looks a little, there, that's a little bit better. All right, looks a little rounded. But now you can say it's 90 degrees. This little box right there means it's 90 degrees, and I already gave it away. But what do you call this type of an angle? Call it a right angle. Gabby?
What would you say it was if it didn't have a little box?
You couldn't. You don't know, okay? Because, I mean, that could be like 89.9 degrees. You don't know. It could be 90.1 degrees. You don't know. All right, technically that's not a right angle. It's pretty close, but it's not, is it? So if you put the box right there, that means it's 90 degrees. We good? All right. This right here, now, again, you have to make a little bit of an assumption, but this is kind of obviously that, look, 90 degrees would have gone like this, right? So from here to here would be 90, but we're going what? Less than 90. So less than 90, what kind of an angle do we call that?
Acute.
Right. Yeah, you've learned this stuff before, haven't you? We call it an acute, A-C-U-T-E, an acute angle, and that would be less than 90 degrees. Make sure I don't go over 15, okay? Less than 90 degrees. Technically, that's not really what the book says. It says between 0 and 90, but I think it's just easier to remember. If it's less than 90, it's an acute angle. Okay, this one right here. This is obtuse. It's obtuse. It's kind of a weird word, isn't it? Obtuse angle, and this would be what? More than. And in math, we don't really say more than that often. We'll say greater than. Right, so greater than 90 degrees. And again, technically, it's not what the book says. It says it's between 90 and 180, okay? So if it's between 90 and 180, then it's obtuse. I got 1 minute. Let me draw one more angle. All right, now, what do I have here? I have two rays with a common endpoint. So guess what I have? I got an angle, don't I?
Yeah.
All right, so it's still an angle. And Alyssa, you said it. What is it? It's a straight angle. That's right, because it forms a straight line. How many degrees is a straight angle?
180.
Good. You guys learned this stuff before, didn't you?
Yeah, like 5th grade.
Okay.
Oh.
All right, so it's a straight angle, and a straight angle is exactly equal to 180 degrees. So from here to here is 180 degrees. Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
All right, let's stop this, and we'll go to the next. Actually, yeah, I think we're going to stop this for good for today. I'm going to show you something else, but I'm not going to record it. Okay, bye.